The spotlight glowed, cameras rolled, and behind the podium a glossy LED screen shimmered with a bold title: West African Unity. A new dawn. Millions watched live as Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood, still and calm, though his eyes held a deep, stormy hint. This was no ordinary summit speech. President Bola Tinubu sat opposite, his face unreadable. The moderator's voice broke the silence. "Captain Traoré, you have the floor." Traoré walked the mic slowly, each step heavy with 1,000 voices. The room tensed. Viewers leaned forward. Living rooms, cafes, hospitals. Even border guards halted their patrols. But Traoré didn't begin with greetings. He looked straight at Tinubu and then spoke words no one expected. "I speak today not as a leader, not as a soldier, but as a brother who could not sleep after what I saw last night." The room froze. A video. A little Nigerian girl cried beside her mother's lifeless body, shot as she slept. Gasps filled the air. How did we get here? Tears welled in his eyes, but he wasn't done. She was only 7. Traoré's voice cracked. After a long pause, his eyes sank, and he dug into his pocket, pulling out a folded photo. "I carry her image with me today, not to provoke, but to remind us." He unfolded the paper. "This is Fatima." Her story made no headlines, but her scream reached me through a video never meant to be seen. Behind him, the studio screen dimmed and switched to black and white footage. A dirt path, a burning hut, a small hand clutching a mother's dress. The moderator's hand approved the clip, but Traoré ensured it played. People in the studio shifted uncomfortably. Tinubu stiffened. She begged the soldier for help. He told her to run. He paused. She never came back. Gasps rippled. A journalist quietly wiped her eyes. Traoré turned to Tinubu, his voice softening. "I am not here to blame you, Mr. President. I am here to beg, with you as a father, as a brother, as a fellow African. This cannot continue." The room went dead silent. The world held its breath. A bead of sweat rolled down Tinubu's temple. Cameras zoomed in. Traoré gaze didn't waver. His voice was calm but heavy, like thunder about to strike. "Tell me, Bola, do you sleep at night?" The question hit like a slap. People in the studio stared. The moderator looked alarmed but stayed silent. When reports say 89 villagers died in Sokoto last week, when a market in Zamfara is bombed, when children mistake drones for stars, do you sleep? Tinubu opened his mouth, but Traoré raised a hand gently. "This isn't political. It's personal." He stepped closer to the edge of the stage. "They are not just numbers, Mr. President. They are daughters, sons, farmers, mothers. They are Africa's heartbeat, and we are letting them die." The LED screen now showed raw, unfiltered photos. Children's faces, empty shoes, burned school books. Viewers at home began to cry. In Burkina Faso, a market woman dropped her produce and wept. "I have no right to speak for Nigeria," he said, "but I have a duty to speak for humanity, because if I stay silent, I am part of the killing too." The audience didn't clap, they were broken. And this was just the beginning. Captain Ibrahim Traoré stood still, Fatima's photo in hand. "She ran barefoot," he said, voice breaking. Over rocks, broken glass, blood. The studio was silent. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop. "I don't need intelligence reports to know what's happening in Nigeria," he continued. "I've seen the footage. I've seen children hiding in schools with no food. I've seen mothers begging soldiers for mercy." The camera zoomed in on President Tinubu. His eyes didn't blink. His hands were clasped so tight his knuckles turned white. "Fatima had no shoes," Traoré repeated softly. "She was running to nowhere, hoping anyone would save her." The screen behind him flickered. Images appeared. A burnt classroom, scattered books. Books. A child's doll, dusted in ash. The screen behind Captain Traoré flickered. "This isn't politics," he said, his voice steady. "This is a funeral." Gasps filled the room. One panelist turned away, trying not to cry. "Mr. President," Traoré continued, "I'm not asking for a statement. I'm asking for a soul." From the crowd came the quiet sound of sobs. And across Africa, in homes and markets, in buses and under flickering streetlights, something stirred. Guilt, grief, and the aching question, how did we let this happen? Traoré paused, closing his eyes briefly. When he opened them, a quiet fire burned behind them. I know what war feels like, he said. I've buried soldiers. I've written letters to their mothers. His voice trembled, not from fear, but from pain. But this war, the one killing babies in Zamfara, students in Kaduna, this is not war. This is collapse. He turned to Tinubu again, softer now. When you carry a nation's name on your back, it's not your spine that breaks first. It's your heart. The room stayed frozen. Journalists didn't take notes. They just watched. I did not come here to shame you, Traoré said. I came because silence is a slow death. And Africa, our Africa, is choking on it. He looked down at his hands. A leader's chest must beat loudest in war. It must hold the fear of children, the screams of widows, the prayers of grandmothers. He raised his eyes. Mr. President, if your heart still beats them, let the world hear it. Tinubu's lips parted, but no words came. A single tear traced down his cheek. The summit was only halfway done, but the moment had already escaped the room. Clips of Traoré's words flooded Twitter, Instagram, WhatsApp. He spoke for us all. Even a Burkinabe leader has more heart than ours. Nigeria is crying, and Traoré is the only one listening. In cafes and community halls, young Nigerians watched on cracked TVs and phones propped up on bricks. Mothers wept. Some whispered prayers. Others simply stared. In Lagos, a journalist who had lost her nephew in a recent attack posted on X. Captain Traoré just said everything we've been too broken to say. Thank you. Back in the studio, Traoré stepped once more to the mic. This is not about Burkina Faso, he said. This is about us as Africans, as neighbors, as brothers. He raised a finger, pointed directly at the camera. To the children watching, you deserve peace. To the fathers carrying guilt, you are not alone. To the leaders hiding behind silence, your people are dying louder than your words. A stunned cameraman forgot to cut to commercial. The world watched. The world cried. And something bigger began. As the summit continued, Traoré pulled out a worn envelope from his jacket. This was sent to me 3 days ago, he said quietly, by a mother from Yobe. He unfolded the letter slowly. Her name is Miriam. Her son, Azim, was 14. He loved football. He wanted to be a doctor. Traoré's lips tightened. Last week, Azim was shot on his way back from Quranic school, caught in the crossfire between gangs and security forces. He began reading the letter aloud, each word shaking. Captain Traoré, I write to you because I know you'll listen. I don't want revenge. I just want someone to care. Azim's blood is still on my doorstep. I wash it every morning. But it comes back with the rain. A murmur rippled through the audience. That rain, Traoré said, voice low, is not from the sky. It's from all the tears Nigeria has cried. And yet no one hears. The camera panned across faces frozen in grief. We cannot lead, he said, if we do not first kneel at the feet of the people we failed. The world was silent. Tinubu finally raised his eyes. In them, shame. Traoré saw it, but he did not strike. He simply stepped closer. Mr. President, he said, I know the pressure. I know the weight. But when power looks away, people disappear. He paused. And Nigeria is disappearing. Gasps rippled across the room. No one had ever said that on a global stage. Every week, Captain Traoré continued, I hear of kidnappings in Kaduna, orphans in Katsina, explosions in Borno, but the world just scrolls past it. And your government writes statements instead of creating solutions. President Tinubu opened his mouth, trying to speak. Nothing came out. I do not say this to humiliate you, Traoré added gently. I say this because I still believe you can turn back. Behind him, the screen filled with a still image. Nigerian children asleep on a concrete floor in an overcrowded IDP camp. Look at them. Just look. This is not fake news. This is not propaganda. This is real. A tear slid down Tinubu's face. What kind of legacy do we leave? Traoré asked. If children must learn the national anthem under gunfire, the question echoed, unanswered. Traoré walked toward the front of the stage and took a deep breath. 2 nights ago, he said, I saw a video of a boy in Maiduguri. The screen lit up again, this time showing a skinny child barefoot, gently tapping on a cracked plastic drum. Smoke curled behind him from a recent blast. His name is Ibrahim, Traoré said softly. Same as mine. But that drum, it wasn't for music. He was using it to calm the younger kids hiding in rubble. Silence. That broken drum, he whispered, made more peace than our governments have in years. The audience stirred. Tinubu looked as though he'd stopped breathing. That boy, with nothing, gave comfort to others. So I ask again, what are we doing with all this power, this status, this responsibility? The camera zoomed in on Traoré's face. If we cannot protect children like Ibrahim, we don't deserve the titles we wear. He looked directly into the lens. And I include myself. His humility broke down every last wall in the room. It is time for action, not slogans, not speeches. Action. One person clapped, then another, and then the entire studio stood, erupting in applause. Just as it built to a crescendo, the screen cut to black. Across Africa, millions thought their TVs had glitched. In truth, someone in the control room had panicked. The speech was too raw, too real, too loud. Social media exploded. Why did they cut it? Who's afraid of the truth? We need to hear this. In the studio, Traoré looked confused as technicians scrambled. A producer whispered in his ear, We've been ordered to end the stream. Too emotional, too political. Traoré didn't flinch. Instead, he walked to the nearest cameraman still filming for the archive. If the world can't hear me live, he said, they will hear me offline. The cameraman nodded. The camera rolled. Then Traoré did something unexpected. He stepped off the stage and walked straight to President Tinubu's seat. Mr. President, he said, may I speak to you, leader to leader? The room held its breath. Tinubu slowly stood. For the first time in hours, he spoke. I'm listening. No mic, no podium, no noise. Just 2 African leaders, face to face. Traoré didn't raise his voice. He didn't accuse. He gently placed a hand on Tinubu's shoulder. I know you carry pain, he said. I saw in your eyes today. Tinubu blinked. But our people don't need leaders who carry pain, Traoré said quietly. They need leaders who act through it. The room was still. Not a single phone rang. Even journalists had stopped typing. Tinubu's voice was dry. You don't understand how hard it is. You're right, Traoré replied. I don't understand your pain. He pointed to the screen, which now showed a map of Nigeria, covered in red dots. Each dot marked a mass killing in the last 3 months. But I understand the people's pain. That's who I speak for. Tinubu's hand trembled. Do you really think it's not too late? He asked. Traoré's response was immediate. It's only too late, he said, when we choose comfort over courage. The camera zoomed in quietly. A tear slid down Tinubu's face. And behind them, Africa watched. A small necklace on the earth, a tiny silver pendant shaped like a heart. I carried this from my mother, he said softly. Now I leave it for you. There was no media crew, no statement, no applause, just a man kneeling at the place where a child once cried out to a silent world. Captain Traoré stood, dusted his knees, and whispered again, You are not invisible anymore. Back in Abuja, news of President Tinubu's visit to Kaduna had reached every corner of Nigeria. Not through official briefings, but through grainy videos, shared voice notes, and trembling hands holding phones or radios. For the first time in years, something other than despair was going viral. Hope. The footage of Tinubu sleeping on a mat among the displaced sparked something even his own party couldn't predict. It wasn't political. It was human. The phrase, he walked among us, began spreading, scrawled on shop walls, chalked onto school blackboards, painted in bus stations. In Kano, Lil Sada's video continued to circulate. Her face, barefoot serious, holding a sign, was now printed on posters beside the words, Let us learn. President Traoré's repost had lit a fire. You are the voice of a new Africa, and I hear you. And now, so did everyone else. In parliaments and state houses across the continent, leaders began reading handwritten letters from children, organizing emergency sessions, and, most importantly, visiting their people. Traoré, however, stayed quiet. Back in his office in Ouagadougou, he turned to his team. "We started something," he said, "but starting is not enough." They waited. He looked out the window, watching the horizon shift with the morning light. "This isn't about saving Africa," he said finally. "It's about hearing her scream and choosing to answer." Silence again. Then, slowly, one of his aides whispered, "We're ready, sir." Traoré nodded. "We go back, not with speeches, with shovels, medicine, books, with truth." Outside, children gathered at the gates of the presidential palace, holding up drawings, little cardboard signs, tiny voices raised. And for the first time in a long time, the grown-ups were finally listening. Something caught the sunlight in the dirt, just a single white bead. Captain Traoré picked it up slowly. It was from his mother's necklace, the one she gave him the day he became a soldier. He had kept it all these years. "This is for you," he whispered, placing it gently on the ground, "so that even if the world forgets your name, God will remember your face." The guide beside him began to cry. As Traoré stood, he noticed people gathering. Quiet villagers, mothers, farmers, children. They stood at a respectful distance, saying nothing. One woman placed her baby on the ground and said softly, "You are the only one who came." A breeze picked up, warm and full of dust. And for the first time in that broken village, hope returned. As Captain Traoré turned to leave the quiet field in Zamfara where Fatima had died, a small girl stepped from the crowd. She couldn't have been more than 6. In her hand was a broken pencil. "Can I still go to school, sir?" she asked, her voice almost a whisper. Traoré knelt down, eye level with her. "Yes," he said gently. "You can, and you must." She nodded, then, without warning, began to sing. It was an old Hausa lullaby, one her mother used to sing before the attacks. One voice became 2. 2 became 20. Soon, the entire village was singing, softly, shakily, but rising together. No one told them to. It came from pain and from healing. And in the middle of it, Traoré stood, tears running freely, not as a president, but as a father who had found a lost child. A nearby drone camera, filming for relief records, captured the moment by accident. But once it hit social media, it didn't stay quiet. "This is the Africa we fight for." One comment read, "This is the Africa we must never lose again." The world wasn't just watching now, it was feeling. 2 weeks later, President Tinubu returned to the same studio where it all began. This time, he wasn't shaking. He entered carrying a wooden box, hand-carved by displaced artisans from Borno. When Traoré arrived, the 2 men embraced, not as rivals, but as men who had bled broken and changed. No words, just truth. Then Tinubu opened the box. Inside, a folded Nigerian flag, with Fatima's name stitched in gold along the edge. "She didn't die in vain," he said softly. "Her name will now fly beside our flag in every IDP camp." Traoré's eyes filled. Together, the 2 leaders stepped forward and made a joint declaration. $100 million in emergency aid for victims. An African Child Safety Pact signed by 14 nations. A new education fund named after Fatima. Across Nigeria, Burkina Faso, Ghana, Senegal, and even the diaspora, cheers broke out in churches, mosques, and markets. For the first time in a long time, leadership felt like love. In a grand hall in Abuja, packed with mothers, orphans, students, farmers, and soldiers, Captain Traoré stepped up to the mic. He looked over the crowd, then directly into the camera, into the heart of Africa. "The world watched us bleed," he said. "Now let the world watch us rise." The scream behind him came to life. Fatima's smile. Sada's sign. Tinubu in Kaduna. The girls singing in Zamfara. The crowd stood, tears flowing. Across the continent, families held hands in front of televisions. Strangers wept together. "We are not powerless," Traoré said. "We are not voiceless. We are the storm that will protect every child with our peace, not our weapons." He raised his hand. And for the first time, Africa saw its leaders not as kings, but as servants of the people. The broadcast ended. But the movement had just begun. If you felt this story in your soul, don't scroll. Leave a comment for Fatima. Say her name. Tell the world what you wish every leader would hear. Like this video if you believe Africa deserves peace. Subscribe if you believe in leaders like Captain Ibrahim Traoré. And share this with someone who still believes in humanity. Because this isn't just a story. It's a cry, a call, a promise. Let's make the world listen.